Hi and welcome to MyCTOFriend, the place where non-technical founders build successful startups by improving their tech management skills. I'm Amaury and today I'm going to answer a question from Ronan, the product director of a growing startup in transport industry. His question is, what is a disaster recovery plan? Before answering this question, let's add a bit of context. Ronan and his team recently developed a new solution as they are growing. They need to increase the standard of their infrastructure. Building a high standard infrastructure is a huge topic and we already covered part of it in previous videos. If you want to check them, you will have them linked in the video description. However, today it's all about what is a disaster recovery plan and how to write it. So first off, a disaster recovery plan is a detailed piece of documentation that helps managers and technicians deal with major business affecting disaster. You might think as a startup, you shouldn't be concerned with such a heavy process, right? Think again. What if your hosting provider disappears? Or what if you lose your app source codes? Don't you think you might need a proper documentations to restore and recover it? You definitely will. There are dozens of reasons to use a disaster recovery plan. First, server crash, or hijacking or virus, or fire, data center burglaries, earthquake, losing critical skills, or terrorist act like for the World Trade Center in 2001. The interesting fact is that if you face a major disaster, your business has 90% chance to die if you don't have a disaster recovery plan. To figure out a D.RP, you need to establish a few things. How much time would it be acceptable for your business to be down? Is there any risk of losing relevant or confidential data? And if the media reports on your losses, how will it affect your business? Will customers continue to trust you? Once you establish these questions, let's establish the minimum a startup should be able to recover no matter what. The most important part of a D.RP are backups and a well-tested restoration procedure. Without backups, a recovery is not possible. So double-check that you have an history of reliable backups with previous versions on a second hosting provider. Talking about second provider, make sure that second infrastructure is ready to deploy. IT doesn't have to run 24/7, but the D.RP should contain the already tested procedure to deploy. There is also a recent technique called infrastructure as code, which consists to programming the deployment of your entire infrastructure to rebuild it within few minutes. That might be very interesting to consider at some point. Going back to the backup side of things, usually a full backup is performed during the night and often once a day or once a week. But what if your system crashes at 8 p.m.? What if you lose what you have done during the day? You could lose it, right? That's why we created what is called standby synchronization or read replica. These are real-time synchronization between two systems that let you have an updated version of your database. These systems let you restore at any point in time, whenever you required it, which can be very useful in case of hijacking. So check with your engineer and have thought of it. D.RP also entails knowledge management. What would happen if your startup, God forbid, your CTO or your lead developer got a serious accident and became unavailable for a few weeks or months? Who will have enough knowledge to keep the project afloat? So first, make sure you have the required documentation to recover production, but also be able to reuse existing solutions under development. And the same goes for password and encryption key management. Do you know exactly where your passwords are and who has access to them? Double check that always at least 2 persons in the organization have access to your entire password database. And this next one really comes from return on experience. When you build a system, when you prepare failover procedure, and when an issue comes up 6 months to 1 year later, it's not always easy to remember in which case you should migrate just one component or a big part of your infrastructure. So you need to have a decision-making procedure saying, if the component X fails, then you do this. If the component Y fails, then you do that. And if the components X and Y fails, then you do this, etc., etc. So I sincerely hope you got the point. A disaster recovery plan is the most important piece of a documentation your company will ever need. So regardless of what happens to your solution or if a key member of your team leaves without providing vital information, having such a refined procedure will strengthen your startup reliability. And now if like Ronan, you have specific questions for your project, just go ahead and ask on myctofriend.co/ask. I will do my best to answer your question by video or to redirect you to existing content that will answer it. And also be sure to go through our myctofriend.co to learn more from real startup growth experience and better manage your startup development. Waiting for your question, I look forward to seeing you in other videos. Cheers!